I react to the quarterback news that popped up over the weekend, and then we are going to talk about Super Bowl 56 before we kick off our positional series focus on the running backs this week. Playoff Lenny, Ronald Jones, will they stay or will they go? Let's talk about it right now.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bucs Nation, and welcome to the Locked On Bucs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, hosted by me, James Yarcho, and of course, my good buddy, David Harrison. We are both writers for SB Nation's BucsNation.com, free and available on all platforms. We thank you for making this show your first listen or first watch every day. When we're not on here, you can find us over on the Twitter machine at JYarcho_Bucs, at DHarrison82. Find the show at Locked On Bucs, and of course, at Bucs_Nation.
Yeah, like James said, we thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or your first view every single day. The Los Angeles Rams still Super Bowl champions. Unfortunately, that has not changed, even though we've had a couple of wake ups between that game and now. But James, let's actually start with the news that pertains to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's a Locked On Bucs podcast, right? So let's start there. And of course, anytime we're talking Tom Brady, it's the number one story for everything going on until we have some sort of final resolution. And I know there are some people who say there's no way, no how Tom Brady's coming back. But look, according to the reports, and Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero are rarely wrong publicly and privately. Tom Brady has acknowledged that never say never, right? That's the famous quote, of course, from the Get Up podcast. But Tom Brady coming back. In the meantime, the Buccaneers focused on doing as much homework they can as on Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson. Now, we ranked our top three veteran quarterback options for the Buccaneers earlier, James. Deshaun Watson, not number one or number two for either one of us. What are your thoughts on the news that the Buccaneers are doing their due diligence on potentially bringing Deshaun Watson to the Buccaneers?
It makes a lot of sense just from the sheer aspect of we know Deshaun Watson can still play. The questions surrounding him involve things that happened off field that are being investigated. There's a civil suit pending, things of that nature. But the dude is one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL when he's on the field, and he's young. He's very, very young. If they can pull off a trade for Deshaun Watson, you can give up, high draft picks over the course of 3 or 4 years, if that's what it takes. But you're going to have your quarterback position locked up for the next decade. So, it makes sense to do your research, do your due diligence, see what you can find out. If you don't find anything, that makes you say we need to avoid this guy, you start engaging in those conversations. You get into your research, you get into your investigation, you go, you know what? Not putting this organization or this team or these players or these coaches in a situation where we're associated with this guy. Let's back off and let somebody else worry about trying to get him. You got to do your homework. All the options have to be on the table. So it didn't surprise me at all to hear that they were, looking into Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, the reports come out the Seahawks really have no interest in moving Russell Wilson unless he demands it, which it doesn't. As of right now, it doesn't really appear that Russell Wilson's going to necessarily demand a trade. I guess we'll kind of have to see what happens with free agency and if that changes any as we get closer to the draft. And then Aaron Rodgers, too. I mean, he and the Packers all of a sudden getting along. So this crazy summer of quarterback rotations and carousels that was supposed to happen is starting to suddenly almost look like basically it's Jimmy G or Deshaun Watson and then Teddy Bridgewater and Jameis Winston in free agency. So we'll see what happens there. But of course, then you look at some of these in the conversations about trading a bunch of assets for a guy like Deshaun Watson or trading a few assets for Jimmy G or hitting the free agent market for a guy like Jameis Winston or bringing back Blaine Gabbert if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And it's interesting because I wrote an article for SportsIllustrated.com and I cover Washington for them, but it applies here a little bit too because you have a copycat league, right? But when you look at the previous two Super Bowl champions, the Buccaneers and the Chiefs, you really don't have much to copy. The Kansas City Chiefs, simply all you have to do to copy the Chiefs is simply go find one of the greatest quarterbacks of his generation in the NFL draft. Oh, by the way, without having to trade up to the number one pick. That's it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
For the Buccaneers, it's as simple as having the greatest quarterback to ever play the game become a free agent and want to sign with you. So again, very simple blueprint to follow there, right? Just have that happen every single year. But with the Rams, you actually have a blueprint that you can follow. And what the Rams did, and I categorized this in last night's show, is they basically mortgaged 4 years of their future, selling their draft picks to get Jalen Ramsey, Von Miller, Matt Stafford, Sony Michel, who filled a very valuable role until Cam Akers could come back to win this Super Bowl title. Now, the Buccaneers are in a situation where that's actually a model you can copy. Mm-hmm. Mortgage your future, sell your draft picks to get the assets today to win. How do you feel? The rumor is Houston wants 3 1s, 2 or 3s, and or 2 contributing players. They're willing to mix those up, but the minimum is 3 1s. How do you feel about that approach, a la the Los Angeles Rams approach?
Do it. Do it. The window is small in the NFL, and the Buccaneers window is still open, even without Tom Brady. If you can get somebody that can play quarterback the caliber of Deshaun Watson. If it takes 3 years of first, it takes 3 years of first. I wouldn't give up the players. I'm not including Antoine Winfield Jr. and Vita Vea in this deal. And that's something stupid Houston would try to pull off. They want Kyle Trask. Sure, there you go. They want Kyle Trask, Tyler Johnson, and Grant Stewart. All right, fine. But I'm not giving up, one of the players that is keeping this window open. But 3 firsts for a guy who's 25 years old, is a Pro Bowler, can hit the deep ball, would fit perfectly in Bruce Arians' offense. Mind you, this is football strictly related. I'm not diving into factoring in off-field concerns.
Right.
Yes, I absolutely pull that trigger. You want to win now. Because the last time the Buccaneers had a championship window, we thought, okay, still have all these players on the defensive side of the ball. They're still fine. And it was 20 years before they won another playoff game. So, yes, maximize right now, send the first, get a franchise quarterback for the next decade.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm with you there. And I think that's what a lot of Buccaneers fans, some Bucs fans want to see the team go all in, go get yourself a quarterback, go get a Russell Wilson or a Deshaun Watson. I think the concern with Deshaun is the same concern we all have, is how many games is he going to be suspended post civil litigation? I don't think anybody has any belief that he's going to get out of his civil trial without any type of ownership. What happens? So he's either going to settle, which in the NFL's eyes will be paramount to admitting guilt, so he's going to get suspended, or he's going to be found liable at his civil case and be suspended by the NFL. How many games can you withstand that barrage of games while that quarterback is out? And then can he get up to speed fast enough to win? So I think that's really the big question. But I think, again, we have to remember Bruce Arians is not here. I would wager that he won't be here in 2023, but I know he won't be here in 2025, right? So if you talk about wagering 2022 to 2024 draft picks, Bruce Arians isn't worried about that. The question is, how much is a franchise hang up on that? Let's talk about the big game. Let's talk about the Super Bowl, because, James, I got to be honest with you. Odell Beckham Jr. goes down. Obviously, you feel for the guy doing that. And now, very last game of the year, he tears his ACL, suspected, not confirmed yet, but that's basically what everybody's assuming. I mean, I don't know how much he's going to be able to play in 2022. He's a free agent. He's an unrestricted free agent this year. That's terrible for him and for his future, at least for the next season or so. We'll see if anybody rolls those dice with him. But mainly, I look at Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. James, if Joe doesn't get rolled up on there in the fourth quarter, I think the Bengals win that Super Bowl. Do you agree or do you disagree?
I don't know, because Stafford got rolled up on too, and you could tell that it was affecting him. He wasn't able to plant. He was overthrowing open receivers. So I'm not really sure. I think, not to dive too deep into this, but I think the officiating got in the way of a really good game in the last 2 minutes. They were letting go for the first 58. All of a sudden it's flag. It's like, get out of the way. This was a great game. And I saw it. I saw the screen grab, and honestly, even being rolled up on the way Burrow was, if he had 2/3 of a second more time before Aaron Donald got to him on that 4th and 1 play, a 4th and 1 play that I hated the play call.
Yeah, me too.
Jalen Ramsey had fallen and there was not a Rams defender within 20 yards of Jamar Chase. The Bengals were a less than 1 second away from winning that Super Bowl, but it was an entertaining game. It was a great game. You hope to see Joe Burrow back and Jamar Chase and how exciting and how fun that Bengals team can be to watch. This is the NFL. You don't know if he's ever going to get back or not. It's going to be a tough climb. They got to protect that kid.
Yeah, I heard someone say this won't be the last time we see Joe Burrow in a Super Bowl. Listen, you don't know that for sure. And exactly. I know I feel like Joe Burrow was injured. I think he was injured, not hurt, but wanted to tough it out for his team. I look back, not even that last drive, but the drive following the one where he got rolled up on. Everything was short, everything was quick. They were having zero attempts at even letting the Rams have a sniff at getting to him. I think Joe Burrow got injured in that game and stayed in there for his team. And I think that ultimately that's what led to the Bengals squandering that lead. Unfortunately, it is what it is. It's in the books, and the Bengals not the only team wearing orange, making some noise these days, James. You may not have heard, but the University of Illinois, the Illini, are in first place in the Big Ten in NCAA men's college basketball, ranked 12th in the nation, and betonline.net is going to be there with us, with all of you, for the rest of the season because pro and college hoops are in full steam. So football might be over, but you can still go get all your latest odds, totals, player performance props, and where the next fired coach is going to land through betonline.net, the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, UFC, and your favorite Olympic Games coverage and information. Head to the website today or use your mobile device and learn more about trends and action going on around the world of sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thanks again for making the Locked On Bucs podcast first listen or your first view of the day. So Super Bowl 56 in the books. The year is over. Everybody is fully into offseason mode now, and we're going to find out what is about to transpire for the 2023 league year here coming up very short, less than a month away from the new league year in the National Football League. And we're going to start this conversation, James. We're talking about the running backs. So we've already talked about quarterbacks. We've already talked about wide receivers and tight ends. If you guys have missed some of those conversations, go back, check those out. The quarterback conversation, much more intriguing, I think, than any of these other ones. But, again, anytime we talk Tom Brady, you're talking big news there. So looking at the running back situation, James, we're going to dive into this for those of you who are catching up. We're going to look at who the Buccaneers have on roster, the in-house free agents, and whether or not we think they will or should come back based on value and everything else and contributions. And then as we get through, we're going to identify a free agent each today. Then James, you and Evan will also identify a free agent. We'll get into the week and we'll go through this process. And at the end of the week, we'll kind of give our preference of what we would like to see the Buccaneers do with retaining their own guys, bringing in new guys, and drafting anybody as well. So taking a look at this Bucs situation right now with the running backs. Right now, you've got Keyshawn Vaughn and Kenyon Barner under contract. And of course, that means that Lombardi Lenny, playoff Lenny, regular season Lenny, Lambeau Lenny, I don't know, Leonard Fournette is a free agent. Ronald Jones is also a free agent about to hit the market. And according to SpotTrack, Leonard Fournette's market value estimated at about $6.1 million per year, while Rojo's average value is estimated about $2.7 million per year. Look, it's no secret. If Tom Brady doesn't come back, these players are far less likely to take less money to stay in Tampa because the perception around the team is not going to be as highly sought after. For what it's worth, Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the top 10, but not in the top 4 of the NFC to represent the NFC in next year's Super Bowl. Just food for thought. That's going to have an impact. I believe, James, that both these guys are gone. Look, when you have limited cap space, you have a guy like Keyshawn Vaughn who hasn't gotten a lot of work. Some of the work he's gotten, he's looked like a young and experienced back. Sometimes he looks like a guy that's kind of above his pay grade. I think there are enough options in the free agent market of guys who are still young enough and looking to prove something, kind of like Leonard Fournette was when he came into Tampa, that you can still get adequate run game support. You look at the Bruce Arians offense, it's completely centered around the passing game. Yes, the running back became a bigger part of that because of Tom Brady. Again, if Tom Brady's not there, who's the next quarterback? Is it Deshaun? Is it Russell Wilson? I got news for you. Both those guys have made a lot of money not having a strong receiving option from the running back room. I just don't see the Buccaneers bringing back, spending the cap space. That's really the issue. It's not about a matter of want, especially with Leonard Fournette. I don't see the Buccaneers giving him the paycheck he can get elsewhere. I don't see Lenny taking the pay cut that he compared to what he can get elsewhere without Tom Brady being in Tampa. So to me, it's just a recipe to be gone. And Rojo, I mean, I can't speak for the young guy, but I feel like his time in Tampa is done. I don't think either side is really fighting for that relationship anymore.
Yeah, I honestly don't think you're too far off. If I had to choose between these two guys as to which one would be more likely to return, I think it would be Leonard Fournette,
Yeah.
honestly, because of the opportunity that he got, was able to kind of rejuvenate his career in Tampa. He knows he would be the lead back here. He would, the offense would run through him in some capacity, especially if they're looking at a Kyle Trask or a Jimmy Garoppolo or a Blaine Gabbert as being their starter. He would be the focal point of the offense, and he would know that. I think, much like the OJ Howard situation, there's some bad blood now between Ronald Jones and the Buccaneers. I think there's some frustration there that he was so close to 1,000 yards in 2020 to be basically jettisoned to the bench for the majority of the season. It's not going to sit well with Ronald Jones, and he probably feels that he earned more than the opportunity that he was given in 2021. But I think it's going to be difficult for the Buccaneers to keep Leonard Fournette, and he could, spot tracks, estimated AAV, is a good number, but we know that's an estimation. There could be multiple teams out there looking for Leonard Fournette services, and that price can continue to climb. So it might be difficult for the Bucs to keep him in-house. If I had to choose one that I think would stay, it's gonna be Tampa Lenny, but I find it hard to see how they would be able to make that work, especially in a scenario that we talked about in segment one. If they trade for Deshaun, if they trade for Russell Wilson, trying to make that money work, they're going to have to go bargain bin shopping at the running back position.
Yeah, I mean, look, unless a guy like Deshaun Watson, or Russell Wilson inspires Leonard to take a discount, a hometown discount to stay in Tampa, I mean, the loyalty factor, kind of it never escapes me really. But again, even that loyalty factor, you look at it, Jason Light, brought him in. Bruce Arians, kind of the coach that gave him the opportunity. Byron Leftwich. I mean, Byron was almost gone this offseason. Again, Bruce is not here for the long haul. So I mean, when you're Leonard Fournette and you understand because you've seen. I mean, remember this guy came from Jacksonville. Like if there's a player that has seen more of the quote unquote business side of this game than Leonard Fournette, I'm not sure who it might be. You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of where this is going to kick in a little bit, that business side. And I don't necessarily blame him if he goes, looking for more money elsewhere. But that's why we do have some free agent options that we're going to talk about. Evan's going to bring some to the table as well. And look, recently dethroned, decrowned, whatever you want to call him, fallen star Alvin Kamara. He's one of those prime examples. You can find running back talent elsewhere in the NFL draft. And we've got some guys coming up that I'm going to have a lot of fun talking about myself that are coming up in the NFL draft, especially because one of them is an Arizona State Sun Devil. But I will say that most running backs nowadays, outside of a few, I would say Jonathan Taylor benefits from a very good offensive line, but he also makes some space on his own and makes some of those runs. But really, by and large, a lot of these running backs in today's game, they're making money off the line in front of them. So as long as you invest in that line, you should still be able to have a successful running game. I look at the Philadelphia Eagles, and it really didn't matter which running back they had back there. They were still able to gain ground for the most part this season because the offensive line was doing really well with their run blocking.
Yeah, and our longtime listeners know that when it comes to us talking about free agency and especially the draft, running back is my favorite position to dive into and to watch. And it's the position that every year I pound the table that they should draft someone high at the position up until really last year because we knew they had Leonard Fournette. But really interested to start to get into some of those options because when you take a look at the successful postseason teams and the amount of money that they're paying their running backs, it's pretty minimal because a lot of these guys are in their rookie deals or they just kind of emerged. Because one thing you don't want to do if you're an NFL team is break your salary cap structure by spending big money on a running back that is probably going to break down, just like you don't want to spend big money to repair your car once it has already broken down. Luckily, Rock Auto is there to help you out. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts that you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand that their warehouse happens to carry? you have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. You can save time and money. Why would you choose to spend 30, 50, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or a car dealership when you can go to Rock Auto, which is a family business serving auto parts customers online for 20 years. Rock Auto's prices are reliably low for every customer, whether you're a professional or a do-it-yourselfer. You can go explore their easy-to-use website today and find the solution to your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck and just write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Wrapping things up here on a Tuesday edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast. James Yarcho, David Harrison on Twitter at @JYarcho_Bucs, at DHarrison82. David, I appreciate the love you showed to my beloved Illini. I'll show your Ohio State Buckeyes a little bit of love. Number 7 in the nation in men's hockey. They are a tough out. Big Ten representing in men's hockey.
Absolutely.
And I'm excited to be up at the University of Michigan this coming weekend when it's Ohio State, Michigan hockey. Number 4 versus number 7. It's going to be jumping. I couldn't get tickets. I would have liked to have gone.
All the goodwill you just had just burned by you saying you were excited to go to that place.
I'm excited to go watch my son play in a tournament.
I'm okay with that.
I'm also excited that it's no longer an outdoor tournament on a lake in Buffalo in February.
Yeah, that's bad news.
Also, my hotel and my son's games are not actually in the city of Ann Arbor. They just call it Ann Arbor for some reason, probably because we're like 10 minutes from the campus. That's neither here nor there. We're here to talk running backs. So some free agent options at the running back position. David, I was scouring this list. There's not a lot of great options. This is going to be one of those, if the Bucs have to go bargain hunting, they're going to have to hit. Somebody's going to have to emerge as a big steal and a big value. And I think we got a couple of them that can absolutely do that. And one of them is a guy that didn't even play in 2021. My pick is former San Francisco 49er Raheem Spicy Mostert. Look, I love Raheem Mostert. I really, really do. He's a running back that he can run the ball. He can catch the ball. He can pick up blitzes. He can really do it all. And for whatever reason, he keeps getting lost in this like weird running back shuffle that they have going on in San Francisco. Gets the opportunity to start in week 1, immediately gets injured. He had one carry and he got hurt. Mostert was going to have a great season because he's a very, very good running back when he finally gets the touches that he deserves. I think in a Bruce Arians / Byron Leftwich offense, it gives you a reliable running back that, not only can run the ball, like I said, he can also catch the ball. He provides a safety valve if you're relying on Trask, if you're relying on Gabbert. It's a guy that can go 3 yards out, catch a little dump off, and he can turn it into 7, 8, 9 yards really, really quick. I love what I've seen from Raheem Mostert. He's not going to break the bank because lack of opportunity leads to lack of statistical advantages. And when you're coming off of an injury, your price is going to go down just a little bit, especially when you're not a marquee guy like a Godwin, like an Odell Beckham Jr. So I just think the fit for Mostert, if they can't bring back Lenny, would be absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Mostert too. Injuries has always just kind of been my hang up with him. But you know what? A lot of these running backs that are available, they're going to have some sort of injury history. That's just kind of the trend that goes with running backs. And my guy that I'm picking for this conversation also has an injury history, but he also has a 1,000-yard rushing season under his belt, and that is Marlon Mack. We were pounding the table for young Marlon Mack to join the Buccaneers when he came out of college, James. And you know what? He's available now. I wanted them to trade for him every year since he's been drafted. Now I want the Buccaneers to go out and make Marlon Mack a Buccaneer finally once and for all. Look, he's got some injury concerns as well, but you know what? Perhaps the best thing that could have happened for Marlon Mack and his future and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when they signed him is the fact that the Colts decided to go ahead and make him basically a healthy scratch like the last half of this last season. So one, you're fueling the fire. You're fueling the desire for Marlon Mack to go out there and prove everybody wrong. 2, you're keeping him healthy. There's less tread coming off the tires. I mean, you look back at Rob Gronkowski, that year he sat out of football, he came back, and obviously there was kind of that break where he had to get back into football shape, but he said he felt better than he had felt in a really long time playing football because his body had time to heal. Well, Marlon Mack hasn't been taking the punishment, hasn't been taking the hits, the low hits on the knees, having to pick up pass rushers. He's got a year or so, about a year fully, to be honest with you, to really kind of let his body mend from some of the injuries he sustained in his NFL career. Again, a previous 1,000-yard producer for the Indianapolis Colts. They don't need him. They've got Hines. They've got Taylor. There's no chance they're trying to bring this guy back. You can get him for about $2.5 million. Marlon Mack is my guy. I think the Buccaneers need to go out there. You sign him. You have Keyshawn Vaughn. And spoiler alert, I'm also going to pick a draft prospect that the Buccaneers need to add via the NFL draft this spring.
Yeah, Marlon Mack was the other guy that I had written down as my other choice. It's a great pick. And one of the other things that people seem to forget about when it comes to Marlon Mack is he can, once again, catch the ball.
Yes,
he had over 20 receptions and over 200 yards receiving as a rookie. Right. Then all of a sudden, they just stopped throwing him the ball, and it's just inexplicable. David, do you remember how excited we were when the Buccaneers traded into the end of the third round? We were like, oh gosh.
Everybody was.
Like, it's the
we did it.
Nope.
Allman did it. Stroud did it. Pewter Report did. Like, everybody was like, this is Marlon Mack. Nope.
Kendall Beck.
It's okay, though. You know who else is available, James? I'm just going to throw out a bonus name just real quick. David Johnson.
David Johnson.
And you could probably get him for like 1.4, 1.7. You know what I mean? Heavily incentive based. And again, with Marlon Mack, with Raheem Mostert, I think you're talking about heavily incentive based contracts as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, coaches love bringing guys back that they know. And I mean, I'm not saying David Johnson come in here and be the workhorse or be the bell cow. Just be in the mix. I mean, it's an interesting process to go through.
Yeah, I don't see that happening, but I would understand it if it did. I'll just say I would be very disappointed if their plan was David Johnson's our lead back for 2020.
Right. Yeah, no, same thing. I mean, I'm talking, let's get Marlon, let's get David, let's keep Keyshawn, let's add the rookie that I'm going to drop later this week.
That all sounds like an excellent plan to me, and we are going to get to that later this week. You all know I'm going to have Evan Klosky on the episode tomorrow. He's going to be talking running backs with us, but we want to thank all of you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or first watch every day, free and available on all platforms. If you want to weigh in on the running back discussion, you can give us a shout at 813-444-5841. But now you need to make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. Check out everything David and I are doing over at BucsNation.com. Follow along on Twitter at LockedOnBucs, at JYarcho_Bucs, at DHarrison82, and at Bucs_Nation. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, wash your hands, be good to one another, fire those cannons. We thank you so much for joining us right here at Locked On Bucs.